am I? The most significant question for every person. I am an individual who loves, who supports, who trusts. But wait, doesn't it sound familiar? Love, support, trust. All of these nouns must describe something that is in common. And for me, this something is compassion. Coming to study in the US from Ukraine in the heat of war was a tough but necessary decision. As I saw how my country unites, how people around the world help us, I became even more persuaded that the whole of humanity is not hopeless and that compassion is a real tool that sparks connections, thus making our world a better place. Moreover, I do believe that you, and all of you are able of being compassionate. Now, there are two or maybe three important questions that arise after this introduction. What essentially is compassion? Where does it come from? And how to develop it, if there is a way of developing it. Of course, there is. Actually, there are. At first, when I was looking up the definition of the word compassion, I looked at the etymology of the word. Various sources, including the Oxford English Dictionary, pointed to the fact that it originates from Latin compati, which means to suffer with. And in English, it came as compassion. But it's not that compelling, right? Like, imagine you and your friend struggling to find a job. Is it a good feeling? I bet not. So, isn't it bad then? Well, depends on which perspective you choose. If you stay with the negative perspective, then yes, you will struggle, but with someone. However, if you look at it from the positive angle, you'll see that you do struggle together, but then the situation itself provides the opportunity to find a solution to the situation together. And okay, I see both sides of the argument and can relate to both of them, but is it really the way to suffer with? Is this the way how we perceive the word compassion? I don't think so. But even if it were, here is my suggestion on how it should be perceived. So compassion means to suffer together in order to grow together. And here is the example. When I was 12, I got the opportunity to be a part of an international summer camp in London. It was my first trip without my parents, just with my peers and a supervisor. The English classes were held at an English school, and there was one girl, very shy girl, sitting in the corner of the room. And she seemed perplexed. She did not understand the material and what was going on in that class at all. So after the class, I came up to her and asked, What's happening? Why are you crying? So her reply was, I don't understand, period. And so my natural reaction is to help this person. And so I proposed to do the homework together. So we did it and we prepared for a test. She told me something that she knew. I told her something that I knew. And then, you know what? We aced our exam. It was 100 out of 100. So, of course, compassion can be measured, but it can't be understood unless you hear the stories. It seems like we tend to understand compassion better through them. So my compassion is about making people feel less troubled, no matter what. But a question, how do I understand when people are troubled? Or the second question on the list, where does it come from? Do I sense it? Do I have the third eye, a sixth sense? That's my dog, by the way. No. Two questions are definitely no. But I have some stories, though, that shed some light on how I feel people. Remember the nouns that I mentioned at the beginning? Love, support, trust. Each of them will be represented in one of the stories. The first story is about love, and it was my experience volunteering at a cat shelter in Kyiv, which is the capital of Ukraine. When I was a part of Ukrainian Leadership Academy, I coordinated a group of people to go to the cat shelter. And I'm very cold toward cats. I did not understand why they're loved, why they're pets, and why should we care about them. But then, after this volunteering, my opinion has changed radically. The thing is that the shelter owners and the dozens of cats there needed our help. And so after the whole day spent with them, we fed them, we cleaned after them, we played with them. In general, we interacted with them. I understood the simple thing, that cats also need love. And even if you asked me now, who would I choose as my pet, I would still choose a dog, respectfully. But in some respect, I do understand cat lovers now, because, look at them. Aren't they cute? Indeed they are. The second is about support, and this is one of the most transforming stories that happened to me so far. I helped at a kids center for those who came from the Middle East. And there was one 12-year-old boy who I helped with math skills, since the children there, all of them needed to adapt in new society, learn Ukrainian language, understand Ukrainian school, and so on. So I acknowledged how a little push is important to the lives of these kids. And I supported him because I just imagined my younger brother being in his circumstances. And it just struck to me that it's impossible to survive without support. If I didn't help him with math, he would probably still have these problems in school. But now, I hope he's feeling much better after our conversation. The last but not least is about trust. I'm not the type of person that trusts people immediately. I can make people feel that I trust them, but for me, it's a very long process. So developing compassion is directly dependent on who you trust. In my case, there are two people that I trust 1,000%. First one is my mom. I always trusted her, and I will be trusting her because she's the one who taught me how to love, how to support, and how to trust. That's why I'm standing here in front of you and telling this, because whenever I succeeded, it was because of these three values. In other words, or in a fancier way, my mom became my role model. The other person, though, that I encountered in the Ukrainian Leadership Academy was my mentor and the person with the biggest heart. Her name is Tanya, and she taught me how to not be afraid of trusting people and how to test the level of trust. And now I usually let people know verbally and non-verbally that I trust them, and thus the conversation flows like a river, and the establishment of the contact goes much, much better. So, after hearing these stories, some of you might conclude that people like me are just born with compassion, and therefore my talk here doesn't make sense. Wrong. What if I say that I believe in everyone's ability to be compassionate? So, to some, it's just natural to express compassion, but to others, you can think of it as a hidden gem. You definitely know, and you have all evidence in the world that the gem you're looking for exists. It's right there. But you can't find it, and you don't have enough tools to extract the maximum benefits from it. Same with compassion. It is not inherent. It is something that makes humans human. And it perfectly brings us back to the list of initial questions. And the one question that we have left is how to develop compassion. Let's analyze the stories that I told in terms of compassion and, more importantly, how to improve it. I'm a practical person, so I would definitely give you 3 pieces of advice, the 3 components that will make you a more compassionate person, and you can practice them right away, even after this event. The first one is to be curious. One of the simplest and most effective ways of cultivating curiousness, and I would say curiosity, and openness is to ask questions, not yes or no questions, open questions. Remember the first story that I told you about the girl in the corner of the room who was crying? I asked the question because it was so natural to me to ask what's going on. But you see, anyone can ask questions, right? You need to use either, you can do it either verbally or non-verbally. And the other piece of advice is to seek feedback. If you see that a person is not interested and has no reaction, then probably it's not worth it. Developing the conversation so that you would be able to help or that someone would be able to help you is crucial. And this aspect actually is rather intertwined with the second piece of advice, which is be an active listener. Face the speaker and keep an eye contact with them. When I was talking to a 12-year-old boy from the Middle East, I stayed positive and I kept an eye contact with him through the entire time of him talking to me. Because I was trying to find a solution to his situation. He was solving his math problems and he was talking at the same time. And I was curious about some stuff, and whenever I saw that he's not feeling well, and this topic is too traumatic for him, I would switch the strategy. And so the thing is to listen without jumping into conclusions. You just need to hear the person out. And perhaps the most intriguing point is volunteering. 2 out of 3 experiences that I provided in my stories are about volunteering. Volunteering at a cat shelter helped me understand why cats need love and why any creatures need love, not only dogs that I'm obsessed with. When I was helping the young boy from the Middle East in that center, I understood that support is such a crucial thing for these kids. And without that, it would not be possible for them to adapt to Ukrainian society. It would not be possible for them to survive, in other words. That's why volunteering is such an important part of our life, and that's why we need to volunteer more and seek it. So, what are the takeaways? The compassion is about love, support, trust, that compassion is for everyone, and that it's about being curious, being an active listener, and moreover, volunteering in order to understand someone or something better. So I call upon you, educate yourself, be involved, volunteer, and eventually you will find the gem. Thank you.